watching clips, the best moments from our live streams every Monday and Friday. Don't miss out. Watchale.
Yes.
As someone who has worked in production, this is exactly the kind of maneuvering producers do to get around an actor's schedule, especially when recasting the actor excluding their character is more trouble than it's worth. So I also believe that this is what Favreau is doing based on my own experience. And second, Sparrow says that Favreau appears to have a direct conversation with none other than Disney CEO Bob Iger this week.
Yeah.
While our insider cannot personally confirm what they talked about, the rumor mill inside Lucasfilm is that Favreau made his case with the boss that prolonging the Carano lawsuit, as Disney lawyers are trying to do, is pointless, and that they should simply give Gina what she's asking for in the legal filings, her like her job back on Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, this is rumor and a little kind
of
I mean, speculative thinking, but
had pretty strong evidence that the conversation happened.
That there
was apparently Microsoft Teams video call, a conference call that was scheduled, and so it was scheduled that quite a few people at Lucasfilm could see. Like they have an online scheduling system, right? So you can see what the people are doing, right? And so let's just say that was available. So not just like my source saw that, others saw this meeting it's an unusual meeting to talk to CEO of the company, right? Of the mega corporation. So people will notice that, oh, Bob Iger and Favreau have a call on the schedule. So that was noticed, right? Apparently the call did happen. And then the rumor in the office was that the contents thereof, because apparently it was scheduled right after Gina made her tweet. So it's certainly probable that they talked about this. It's based on time.
Okay. All right. Matt, any thoughts on that that probable conversation, and who knows what they were talking about? Do you see Favreau kind of leaning on an Iger, wise guy style?
I don't know about leaning on him. I know that Favreau has a lot of clout within the studios because, like he helped launch Marvel. He resurrected Star Wars on TV. So he has a lot of respect in the industry, and Iger being the CEO of Disney, obviously, has conversations with him and all of the other studio heads and creative heads and stuff like that. So it wouldn't surprise me if he sat down with Iger and basically made his case. And we all know that from the get-go, Favreau was very much against the dismissal of Gina Carano because, he had plans for her, he had plans for her character, all this other stuff. So it wouldn't surprise me if he basically said, like, look, just make this lawsuit go away so that I can bring her back into the fold and everyone's happy. So, I believe that.
Yeah, and so let me add something that's not in this report, but it's actually a May report that I put. It's on my Patreon. It was a scoop that I got back in May because some people DM me asking about, hey, so if Favreau is actually trying to make a case while this film is beginning production, does that mean that he set aside certain scenes to late in the process that maybe if it's a year from now, maybe it's settled a year from now, right? That kind of thing, right? So if that's true, does he have a draft of the script? And I reported back in May that my contacts had seen a new draft of the script popped up in May that was floating around the Lucasfilm office that had Cara Dune reinserted. Cara Dune did not exist in earlier drafts and then suddenly they saw a draft floating around that people were commenting on. Hey, it's interesting. Cara's in this, like certain scenes. When we lost our great actor, and forgive me, and I'm blanking, our wonderful actor who was with her in
Carl Weathers.
Carl Weathers, right? So when we lost Carl Weathers, my understanding was Weathers had certain scenes in the original. He was still alive when they started writing the script, right? God bless him. And that suddenly certain scenes that Weathers had been given in those earlier drafts suddenly had Cara Dune. And, considering the kinds of characters there were, you could probably easily replace Cara Dune as the action badass that Weathers was going to be in those scenes, right? So certainly, a draft was created maybe as a contingency plan to, I would do that. If I was in his position, and I'm like, all right, I don't know what's going to happen here. I want her back. Maybe I can get the political system on my side. It would be foolish to spend like an hour of my time and rewrite it, to have a version locked away in case that scenario opens up. So there is apparently a draft that exists that they could jump into for those scenes.
And I would also postulate that Favreau's looking to use this movie to kind of launch some of like his proposed series after the Mandalorian, like Rangers of the New Republic, which was going to be Cara Dune's like TV show, the stuff with Mandalore with Katie Sackhoff and stuff like that. Like I feel like there's a lot of stuff that's kind of like on the sidelines that the movie is going to be positioning to kind of like spin off to. And if they can bring Cara Dune back into the fold, I think like that might be one of his big pitches to Bob, where he's like, look, we can have this really successful series. She's got a big fan base. This stuff has only made her more popular. It makes sense to bring her back into the fold.
Let me finish reading this, because it's all kind of intertwined what you guys are saying here. Consider that Gina announced a few days ago that the judge in her case is allowing Discovery to go forward. These rumors fit the timing. It makes absolute sense for Favreau to use the judge's decision as a catalyst to push Iger towards settling. Kind of guys, how you just talked about. Will Iger do it? Sparrow is unsure. Our contact speculates that Iger might allow the case to continue into Discovery so that evidence can be brought out about Kennedy's, KK's,
malfeasance.
Thank you, with Gina. Evidence that he can use to make sure that Kennedy leaves Lucasfilm quietly without any future drama. So the pressure is clearly building in Gina Carano's favor. And if Favreau gets his wish and Gina returns to Cara Dune, he's made sure that there's still time to fit her into this Mandalorian movie. This is fantastic, Kamran. Do you really think Iger is playing this politics of timing with this lawsuit? So the long game is that he gets KK finally out. Is that a possibility?
I mean, look, I think Matthew would agree that the fact that Miss Kennedy still, at least on paper, has a job, even though multiple people look at us like, I haven't seen her in a year. I mean, and we see her on Instagram in London all the time. Who the hell is she, right? But technically, she's still got her name on the letterhead, right? And it's one of the great mysteries, like the Stonehenge. Like, what the hell is this, right? It doesn't make any rational business sense on any level, right? And so I've always said that she's got to have something on Iger. She's got, because 40 years of parties, you get some photos, you get some video. It just happens, right? You get some stuff happening that you get on people, right? So I've always believed that there's some leverage there that we don't know, because otherwise the behavior even doesn't make sense from the internal woke versus rational people politics of Disney, right? But whatever. Let's assume that there is clearly some hesitation on Iger's part to cut her loose, whatever the reason for that is, right? Some people have suggested maybe he's trying to milk to certain DEI financings, and that letting her go might irritate certain financiers. Possible, right? So there's certain pressures that are keeping him from just cutting the cord like we've been demanding for like 7 years, right? So in that, the more evidence he can use, this case is actually a windfall for him. If it goes to forget going to trial. Discovery, as Matthew knows, it takes a year or more, right? You got to go through documents, emails. You got to depose people. It's a long process. Most cases settle out early in discovery because there's embarrassing stuff comes out. People are like, okay, we can't let this go to trial. I cannot imagine this going to trial. You can be certain that there are unguarded, unwise emails and DMs and other contacts between Ms. Kennedy and other people regarding Gina Carano that would make it clear that this is a personal vendetta. It is an ideological vendetta. It is a prejudicial vendetta. It's not about that, she violated whatever, bizarro claims the lawyer's been trying to make on, Disney's personal reputation or whatever. I mean, none of that worked with even the courts. So there's something that Iger seems to still want to make her go away forever, right? And I think if I were him and I have some gun on my head, which appears to have, it is useful to say, look, Kathy, we got these emails that make you look like a jackass that are going to make us lose this case and are going to ruin your legacy and your reputation. Let's just call it a day. You move on, because Matthew, I think you would agree. I agree with you. She can't come back with the current power structure of Lucasfilm. At least what's on paper. She can't come back with Kathleen Kennedy there. It's no way that is politically feasible. It's like Christ said, you cannot serve two masters, right? You can't go in there and work for Jon Favreau and Kathleen Kennedy. It's not going to happen, right? It's an absolute humiliation for Kennedy, and she has to be out and say, well, they did that when I wasn't there, stupid people. But they hired an anti-Semite. I tried to stop them. They can't do that while she's there. And so,
Kadish, any ideas? Any thoughts on that? What Kamran just said?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, since 2018, I've been coming on live streams talking about Kathleen Kennedy and how she's not going anywhere. She's not going to get fired. Her contract's going to get auto renewed. She's going to be around until she decides to retire. Blah blah blah. And for years, everyone was telling me, "Oh, you're wrong. it doesn't make any logical sense.
Hmm.
The thing about Hollywood is that logic has nothing to do with Hollywood. It's about relationships. It's about leverage. It's about nepotism. It's about who you know.
Mhm.
Kathleen Kennedy, for upwards of 30 years, she worked with some of the biggest power players in Hollywood. She's friends with all these people. She's got Spielberg in her corner. She's got Lucas in her corner. She's got her husband, who's a mega producer, in her corner. If she wanted to tell all of her friends to boycott Disney, Disney's film production overnight could conceivably get tanked. Basically, she wields a lot of power. And because of that, this is one of the reasons why that she has not been fired, despite the fact that every single thing that she's attached her name to in regards to Star Wars has been steadily on the decline in terms of like financially successful, commercially successful, merchandise, all this stuff. Like she has tanked the brand with her mismanagement of this thing. And I feel like if Bob Iger was actually concerned about that, he'd have just, quietly retired her a long time ago, right? Given her a golden parachute, paid her to go away, all this other stuff. So Bob Iger is famously friends with Kathleen Kennedy. I don't think he would do anything to try to remove her, because if he wanted to remove her, he'd just do it. And I feel like the only way that Kathleen Kennedy would step down is if there was stuff that came out in this lawsuit that was so damaging to her reputation that it would just make sense for her to go away. Yeah, exactly. So like I don't know. I don't think this is a power play by Iger, but I do think that if there was anything that was going to get Kathleen Kennedy to retire from Lucasfilm and hand the reins off to someone else, it's probably this lawsuit.
Well, and if you recall, Matthew, the Sony emails that were leaked by those hackers. They claimed it was North Koreans. Who the hell knows, right? But the hackers, it brought down Amy Pascal, who at that time was the head of Sony and was considered the most powerful woman in Hollywood, right? Amy Pascal was untouchable. And then a bunch of emails come out where she makes fun of Angelina Jolie. And that's enough. Making fun of Angelina Jolie and mocking her is enough to ruin her career, right?
That's it, huh? That was it.
And that's not even, let's just say aggressively tinged emails with political connotations about someone who you don't agree with. That's even worse. If I could tell you what Gina Carano was thinking, I would tell you if she had given me the permission to do so. I don't. I'm just basing my thoughts on what I've seen people do and what I think are what I would advise to do if I were in her inner circle. That's, based on what I see works, right? We'll find out soon enough what happens and what she do. Some people are like, well, you're saying one thing about Gina and one thing about Iger. I'm like, yeah, they're two different people with two different agendas. Gina wants her job back. Maybe she does want an apology. Maybe she wants to leave a legacy of I skewered the woke dragon. Maybe, but she wants certain things, right? Iger wants other things. He wants to somehow salvage his legacy. He wants to get this annoying thorn out of his side, of Kennedy. He wants to do all these things, and they're not necessarily at the same purposes. They can come together, but they're on their own tracks. This is a particular instance where they could come together.